MegaMind, Mega Time. What is up? What is up? MegaMind Podcast episode. I don't know what episode we're on, but this is exciting. I'm here with actually a college teammate of mine, or I guess you could say alumni, alma mater, however you would call it. We went to college together. Luke Henderson. What's up, bro? How are you?
Yeah, definitely not a teammate. I didn't play no soccer.
You played what? You played baseball, right?
Yeah, let's run it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're here with Luke Henderson, bro. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you do. I know you're definitely in the insurance game. You're giving back to the community. You're in the charity space for sure. But who is Luke Henderson, and why should we know him?
It's pretty vague. I mean, as far as like career-wise, I do financial advising. Um, just work with anyone across the board, anyone from recent college graduate to social media influencer to executive VPs. As far as community work, work with several nonprofits. One of them is, we raise money to fight veteran suicide. It's personal to me. I lost my best friend to that 3 years ago. Next week I'll be out of country. It's a nonprofit. Can't really tell where I'm going.
Yeah.
What's up?
Gotta get the mic closer.
I'll get it go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad.
It's all good.
But yeah, next week I'll be out of country with a nonprofit. They fight against sex trafficking.
Okay.
And so, and then tomorrow I'll actually go with Gwinnett County Police. I'm dropping off a check for Special Olympics of Georgia. So same thing, personal to me. My niece is Down syndrome, and so they raise money just to help sponsor the athletes, pay for uniforms, the games, food, all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I'm Luke. I go to the gym. Right now, my coach is trying to get me into bodybuilding, trying to get me on stage and everything. But other than that, just,
You're on stage right now. Luke, so that's what's up, bro. Where are you from? Where are you originally from? What area? I know you're here in Georgia, but
Yeah, so I grew up in Snellville, Georgia. The old saying is where everybody's somebody. And I always like to tell people, so here in Georgia you have Lake Lanier, and I'm actually related to the Laniers. Yeah, so it's on my great-grandma's side. She was Dryas's daughter. Dryas and Sydney were brothers. And so kind of depends who you tell. Some people are like, that's kind of really cool, but then everyone's like, that lake's haunted. So it kind of like really depends which way you go. But yeah, grew up in Snellville. My parents moved to Auburn, Georgia when I was 10. Actually, Auburn made Shark Tank one time.
oh wow.
Yeah, so that was actually pretty cool. But other than that, went to college, went to 3 different schools for baseball, went to a junior college in Alabama, Southern Union, had a full ride to play baseball there, ended up at Truett McConnell, obviously where you and I met, and then went on to do my master's at Bryan College in Tennessee.
That's right.
And so after that, now I live in the Beaufort area. That's pretty much it.
That's awesome, bro. And actually, I'm gonna dive right into it because I know a lot of people don't necessarily know your full story, and I think that you can be a big influence. I think your story is very influential to a particular age group that may be going through the same thing. And obviously, we're going to get into your accolades and everything like that in your career, but I want to touch on this because I know a little bit on the personal side of things. So why is it that you went to 3 different colleges? And also, what made you make the move from being in a local school like Truett McConnell is local to Georgia, right? You were closer to home, and then making that transfer to Bryan? Because I mean, that was very odd when that happened.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was actually playing travel ball, and believe it or not, I was actually getting recruited by LSU. And I remember we were on a charter bus coming back from Florida. Coach called me to the front, and he's like, I just got off the phone with LSU. And he's like, guess who they called about? And I was like, I don't know, Trey. Like some other dude. He's like, why would I call you up here? And I was like, dude, you mess with me all the time. Like, I don't know. And, man, it's always one of those, like, if you could go back in time, what if? Because I was like, man, like, you look at LSU, their program, like, it's dominant. And, but I was like, man, that's really far from home. And my travel ball coach told me, he was like, I want you to develop as a player. And, I was getting scouted by professional teams. And so he was like, I went to Southern Union. The coach there, his nickname's Jabbo. ended up in the Hall of Fame. So went there on a full ride, and it was like middle of nowhere, Alabama. We had, I think, 2 stop signs, no red lights.
Just straight bumblefuck Alabama.
Bumblefuck Egypt.
Yeah.
And there was no cell phone reception. You couldn't even skip class to watch Netflix because the internet would go out. So like,
It wasn't even worth it.
it was a shit show. And so I was there for a year, and just being like full transparent, I mean, I just didn't like who I was becoming. I mean, I was a hustler. You know, growing up, I always watched my parents fight over money. You know, paycheck to paycheck, and I was always told like we don't have the money for that. And so I hated asking for handouts. And so
Me too.
yeah, I learned I'd rather a hand up than a handout. But I learned real quick. So our cafeteria closed at 5:30, and I think there was 52 guys on the baseball team when we started. I think we finished with like 32, and like 29 or 30 of them smoked weed. And so I got really smart. We'd finish up with practice. About 8 o'clock, you know, everyone's going to smoke.
Yeah.
The nearest restaurant, it was a little shack called Pinky's. They had like chicken fingers.
Yeah.
They closed at 6. And then we had Stevie's gas station. They closed at 8. Had really good Philly cheesesteaks. But other than that, McDonald's was 30 minutes away. And so I learned real quick, people get high, they get really hungry.
Yeah.
And dude, I'd pull out this little griddle, I'd start making grilled cheeses. And then same thing, they would get high, they would forget they had homework. And so I was really good at writing papers. And I think that fall semester I made a little over 10 grand.
Oh shit! Just charging everybody for grilled cheese and papers.
Yeah. And like I would tell people, like I had a set price, like this is my minimum just to even write a paper, you know. And then it was like, depending on the length, what grade you wanted, because it was all effort at that point. Like how much more time am I going to put into it? Price would go up, you know, and people they'd get pissed off and they're like, you know, $300. I'm like, okay, then fail. I don't care. It's not my class.
Yeah.
You know, but they wanted to go out to the bars, they wanted to go party, whatever. I wanted to make money. And so was doing all that, and then I actually, you know, started messing around with drugs as well. Like I said, didn't like who I was becoming. And at that time, my grandpa was actually dying, and I wanted to be closer to home. So that's how I made the shift to Truett McConnell. Didn't want to go there. My best friend had actually played there. Didn't like the coach, but it was, you know, May. Everyone had already filled out, you know, their rosters for the fall. So I ended up going there, and you want accolades too?
No, I do want accolades for sure, but so like, you know, you ended up at Truett McConnell, right? And obviously you didn't like the baseball coach. You weren't a huge fan of the program to begin with, correct?
I got kicked off the team.
Okay, you got kicked off the team. What happened? Why did you get kicked off the team?
So I actually, my first year at Truett, I actually tore the labrum in my hip, my left hip. And the coach thought I was faking the injury. You know, I thought it was a pulled groin at first, and it just progressively got worse. You know, like I'd wake up in the middle of the night screaming, and played through the entire season, and was AAC Pitcher of the Week 2 times that season.
Oh, beautiful.
Just means that you were the best pitcher that weekend out of the whole conference. And so I was doing CrossFit at the time, and like I said, just kept getting worse. Ended up going to get an MRI, had a severely torn labrum, and was actually at a huge risk of dislocating my hip.
Wow.
And so...
That's why they kicked you off?
No, so... Well, yeah, basically. So, yeah, my doctor, he was the orthopedic surgeon for the Braves.
Okay.
I went to school with his son, and so he did my surgery, and then he had a training or a running regimen, and, you know, set me up with one of the Braves physical therapists. And, you know, say like I was supposed to do 8 sprints at like 60% effort, you know, just building up stamina. He would make me do 50, you know, and it got to the point where like your full recovery is like 6 to 8 months. I was back on the mound in 4, you know, trying to get ready for the season and doing full sprints and everything. Then they come out with this fitness test to where, you know, if you don't pass, you don't play.
Oh, wow.
And that was going into my senior year at this point. And we had a new pitching coach. And so I had to he was wanting me to do 6 a.m. conditioning every day until I passed this fitness test. but my doctor orders I couldn't pass because I couldn't do cuts and turns, which was required in this fitness test.
Which actually, if you don't know baseball, did it really affect your pitching if you could do those things?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, obviously in pitching, there's a lot of torque in the hips, but then, like sprinting over the first base, like that's going to be like the most you're going to do, but a lot of your power comes from your legs, your hips, and all that. And so basically, based on him was if I couldn't take the fitness test, I couldn't pass, which means I didn't play. And that was my senior year,
Wow.
And so I went to the athletic director, and I was like, man, I'm not trying to make like a big stink of this, but like,
what's going on?
yeah. And so the coach basically said that I was lying, and I was like, man, if that's how you feel, it's how you feel. So ended up kicking me off the team. But he kicked me off in January. Season didn't start until February. And I say that, so Bryan College actually recruited me, same conference.
Yeah.
Because I'd never touched the field that spring, that kind of does my year of sitting out to transfer within the conference.
Wow.
Ended up going to Bryan. My junior year, I got AAC Pitcher of the Week again with the torn labrum, and ended up at Bryan. Actually pitched against Truett, so that was really cool. And then ended up winning a conference championship.
That's beautiful, bro.
So,
Comeback story.
Yeah, so that was fun. So.
Dude, that's awesome. I wanted to touch on that because I remember that. Like that is an accomplishment that I remember when I hear the name Luke Henderson. Like I was like, yo, that kid got kicked off his team and then turned around and whooped their ass in the conference, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah, shout out that coach. That was probably not a good play, but now going forward, what was life after Bryan? So you win the conference title. Let's say you graduate, right? Did you end up graduating college?
Yeah. I finished my master's.
Okay, you finished your master's. Now what?
So that was December 2019 when I finished my master's. I was actually ring shopping at that time. I dated a girl for 2 years, sweetheart, and her dad. I asked for the blessing, and his only requirement was that I have steady income.
Yeah.
I was like, I respect that. And so I was interviewing with a couple companies at the time for finance.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to name them?
Sure.
It was Edward Jones and Raymond James, and I think Merrill Lynch was. I don't know if it was at that time or afterwards, but then COVID happened.
Oh wow, shut down.
Yeah, so everyone, like, no one knows what's going on. We're on a hiring freeze. I'm sitting here with a master's degree. She's like going off on me. She's like, you don't even care. And I'm like, it's a pandemic. Like,
yes, I don't really know what to do right now.
I was like, no one's hiring. So, yeah, it was humbling because here I am. I have a master's degree, and I was working construction. I was digging ditches for $14 an hour. And I'm sitting here watching people, get these handout checks during COVID. What was it called? The stimulus.
Stimulus check. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't get one.
Yeah.
I wish I would have got one.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting here like social media, like I'm watching people go to the beach, go to this, go to that. I'm sitting here digging ditches, $14 an hour. I'm like, bro, like what the hell?
I remember that time during that time too.
Yeah, well, that's when you and I got reconnected too.
Yeah.
So
I was working at Domino's Pizza at the time. He was digging ditches. Wow.
yeah,
That's crazy. All right, go ahead, keep going.
But yeah, at that time, I'll be honest, like my mindset sucked. I was sitting here playing the victim mentality of, why is this shit happening to me? And I was playing woe is me and this and that, whatever. And, I had a mentor at the time, and they told me, they were like, shift your mindset. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, instead of saying like, why is this happening to me, start asking, what am I supposed to learn? And I started learning a lot about humility, and that's the thing is like I've done construction. My dad had his own construction company. I've worked since I was 5 years old. My whole summers were spent working. So like I understood like hard work. I understood work ethic and everything. And just really understanding the humility of just because you have a title doesn't mean that work is beneath you. And
Fact. That's a bar right there.
yeah. So, but ended up. So I was with that company for about a year and a half or so, and actually switched to another company. Same thing, like still in the middle of COVID. This was like late 2020, early 2021, somewhere around there. Ended up switching to a commercial construction company, and I was actually traveling, so we were going anywhere from like casinos to schools and all this, doing just expansion projects. And so you got to see a lot of cool places behind the scenes. But same thing, I'm making like 15, 16 bucks an hour, you know, and
Yeah, it's not paying the bills.
no, and I mean it was humbling, you know, because I'm sitting here, I was like, man, I wanted to go into finance because I wanted to serve people and I wanted to help people, and I was like, I just feel like I'm not there.
Yeah.
And same thing, you know, stayed humble and started shifting the mindset of like, what am I supposed to be learning during this, you know, and it was really just learning how to relate to people, you know, of all different backgrounds. I mean, obviously, if you go onto a construction site, there's people of different, you know, ethnicities, backgrounds.
A lot of Hispanics.
See,
Yeah, so you learned Spanish, huh?
dude, I got kicked out of Spanish class in high school, and I told the teacher, I was like, you're a glorified babysitter, because they would do Rosetta Stone.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I was like, I learned more working construction than I ever did in the classroom.
That's fact.
I was like, you learn all the lingo, you learn everything, and did I tell you too? You make real good friends with them, they start feeding you.
Yeah.
And, so,
That's fact.
yeah, no complaints there.
So I want to talk about, sorry to interrupt there. I want to talk about the mindset shift. Now, I know during this time is kind of where we met, and a lot of people don't know this probably about you. Same for me, but I don't mind talking about it now because I think it was very crucial to at least my career path at the end of the day. I'm sure you can probably relate and say the same. But you know, how did your perspective switch, and who did you kind of get mentored by during that time?
Yeah, so at that time, you know, when I was talking about you and I getting reconnected, it was through the Amway business.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's where a lot of my mind shift started to happen was, you know, getting around people of higher caliber.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you have people with different backgrounds, whether high school dropouts or college dropouts, people with PhDs, didn't matter. You know, they're all on the same caliber, same level. They all have the same drive just to be better and get more out of life. And, you know, all of a sudden it was like, if I ever want to be into a leadership position, I have to start reading.
Yeah.
And I hated reading.
Me too.
But it also, you know, Stefan,
Yeah.
you know, he always said this thing. He was like, you get exposed to the business and then the business exposes you.
Fact.
And it did. That's where, like, I had to wrestle with this old version of Luke,
Yeah.
you know, of like what I thought I knew and realizing what I didn't actually know. And I learned that a lot from just reading, you know, reading a lot of books on just self-growth, business, how to relate to people, how to talk to people.
What are some of those books for viewers that are watching?
Let's see, Atomic Habits, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. Actually, my college professor at Truett said, I think 98% of millionaires have read that book.
Yeah.
The other 2% are like rappers and entertainers or whatever, you know. But Think and Grow Rich is huge. Hung by the Tongue, that's the biggest thing, is like learning what to say, like when you talk to yourself. Words have power. I was a big fan of Og Mandino.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Greatest Salesman.
greatest salesman, greatest miracle in the world. I will tell you, the 10 scrolls at the end of Greatest Salesman, you read those every night like it says to, your mindset will shift. And when I actually read God's Memorandum in The Greatest Miracle, I actually broke down crying.
Yeah.
Because there was a passage in there, why do you value yourself in pennies when you're worth a king's ransom?
It's facts.
And dude, you know, at that point, like, my self-esteem was so low because I'm like, dude, I'm digging ditches. I'm not amounting to anything in life. And it was like God just speaking, like, you don't think I can't use you because of where you are?
Yeah.
You know, and it broke me. But those, No Surrender, Paul Wagner,
Uh-huh.
I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good one. Acres of Diamonds. I can keep going.
Yeah, yeah. No, so, guys, I mean, I just want to touch on this myself because I remember going through a lot of this with Luke at that time. And we were both in the Amway business, trying to build a business. And, you know, it was one of those things where, you know, we were, at the time I was building a team, building a community, doing the whole 9 yards. And, you know, we're all like running together, trying to read, trying to do all these things. But, I mean, we were getting rejected left and right just because, number one, of the traditional business model that we were using. Right, obviously, people refer to Amway as like a pyramid scheme. So I can relate when you say, you know, you were digging ditches, you're doing the pyramid scheme, and you're like, your self-esteem was like, bro, why am I here right now? Like, so now fast forward, like after that whole phase, your mindset shifted. You know, now things are starting to get better. what does that life look like for you now?
As far as like, what does my best month look like?
Well, where are you at? Like, what, you know, how did you get your how did you finally get out of that stage? Is what I'm asking.